Oh, no, I'm just parked right there.
Thanks a lot.
What's up?
Never seen anybody buy that.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Have a good day.
Times Square is the intersection of Division Street, Canal, and East Broadway, termed by the establishments of Dimes Deli, Dimes, and Dimes Cafe. Maybe 2013 or 2014, when NY Meg had discovered all these amazing small restaurants, kind of like very independent and quite untraditionally American, to be very delightful. As a cultural phenomenon, I'd say it has a history because the Lower East Side has always had a reputation for being very affordable for artists. It's kind of like skate culture with the skate parks. Closer, further west towards Two Bridges. It felt quite anonymous. When I first moved here, maybe in 2011, it didn't have an identity. It's a hodgepodge of immigrant culture. It's like Chinese, Jewish, Puerto Rican, and Ukrainian building owners. So it just didn't really have the contrivedness of lots of neighborhoods in New York, where it's kind of like you have to fit in to a certain identity or a trope or a cliche. So it really did feel a little bit like the Wild West. I mean, this is a hot take or like an opinion of mine, but I feel like Brooklyn just feels overproduced and a bit kind of just like contrived. So I like the Chinese grandmas. I feel that Times Square has become a cliche of itself. I know people in Paris who've never been to New York and they know of this neighborhood, New York, as like something fetishized, a fishbowl of youth culture, nostalgic for something that feels like old New York, maybe. Something that I understand a lot of Brooklynites also like who live in Bushwick or like Williamsburg. A lot of people who live in those neighborhoods will come to Times Square to kind of really feel that kind of old school New York energy. So this is where I live. It's 169 Bar. It's been here since like the 1920s, I want to say, and it actually used to host like a Chinese mafia. And if you look up on the internet, there's like an article about how some like waiter's ear got cut off in the 20s. So it's quite infamous. But I live here on the 4th floor, and I've lived here for like roughly 8 years. Landlords. But yeah. Those are neighbors, as you can tell. Very white. But anyway, so I'm getting priced out of this place because there's new management. And basically after utilities, it'll be nearly $3,500 a month. As compared to when I first moved in, it was $1,850. So you can see that's basically a double inflation. of rents here in Chinatown. But love it. So this is Clandestino. It's a neighborhood wine bar, and they do like very affordable cocktails, like $9 gin and tonics, which is fairly reasonable for New York City. I used to live directly above Clandestino, and it was a massive apartment with washer and dryer, which is a blessing in New York City. And we found it through Craigslist, and the listing was weird bathroom and kitchen. And immediately went straight to this place. Had no idea what Clandestino was. Looked on Yelp. Listing said, chill wine bar that plays Leonard Cohen. And I was like, oh, okay, I can manage that. They did not ever play Leonard Cohen. It was like all the time. But a great bar, I would say. Since the pandemic, there's been more of like a Parisian culture that's been happening in this neighborhood with kind of like terrace culture, which is outdoor seating. So very friendly, lots of smokers, lots of like wine at like 4 p.m. I don't know. I mean, 2005, the sign says. It used to be owned by a French woman and her very, very curmudgeonly husband. But now they have new ownership, and it's become very hip. It's kind of like if you sit down for a drink, you're inevitably gonna run into somebody here. And I think people like it because it's kind of still, for the neighborhood, kind of like unpretentious because it's straightforward. Like in New York, I kind of prefer to go to like sports bars, and this still, I think, keeps an essence of no frills. It's just like strong drinks, okay service, good. Okay, so this is Mings Cafe, and this is where I used to always get like a good $6 kind of lunch, like a short ribs with bitter melon. They did like really good like Hong Kong style breakfasts and stuff like that. A real kind of like neighborhood place that serves like the local inhabitants, like real working class stuff. But they closed recently during like the pandemic. But so now it's a speakeasy. And it's very like groovy, like 70s vibes. But the interesting thing is they still kept the sign up to keep this sense of like authenticity, which I find to be quite slimy, because it's very restrictive. Because literally, if this gate were open, the windows are like blacked out. Like everything is very like closed off and exclusive. My friends who work in bartending have told me that this place has become extremely obnoxious and very exclusive to basically like they don't want Chinese people to go there, or like the local, you know, like Chinese residents. I think that there's an interesting sense of irony that they kept the sign, but meanwhile it's like extremely like not serving the community. So this used to be a little pharmacy called Stanleys, and he was very kind of like holistic, and he had like hangover kombuchas and different kind of brews. Very like naturopathic. Stanley was like this little adorable Indian man. He's like maybe like yay tall, and he was like a little Wes Anderson character, kind of like a cartoon with a little lab coat. And he ran the shop for, I don't know, before I moved to this neighborhood, but he recently passed away. And now I don't know what the hell this is. I think it's supposed to be like some sort of art space with like clothes. But yeah, R.I.P. Stanleys, miss you. So this is currently a tailoring shop that Bodhi, a fashion brand, operates, and they do embroideries and repairs, which is very respectful. I feel for the environment, but however, this used to be one of my favorite coffee shops. It was literally called Coffee Shop, in like a big blue awning with giant white text, and it was just this like grizzly old Jewish man, and they served the shittiest coffee, like literally Folgers. And it was like $1, and they'd blast out like Bill Withers in the morning, like so loud, or like Michael Jackson. And they also had like literally like boxed brownies, like the mix. But it was so sweet. His son took over after he retired. I do respect though that they still offer coffee and chai, and they also have really good homemade samosas. So I'll give it that. I'm not sure if this is just me gleaning on too much about what I know about real estate in this neighborhood, but one of the biggest perpetrators of the gentrification of Times Square, this little triangle, is this building here. If you see the owner is a real estate developer, and he actually owns a building in Nolita where John Legend and Chrissy Teigen lives. And he actually is the one who invested in the hotel, which is over here, 9 Orchard, where if you book, let's say it's going to be like $1,000 a night. So that's a very interesting thing. Oh, George Michael. Who is this Chinese grandpa blasting techno George Michael? But it's just really good Austrian food, like really decent schnitzel, but the goulash is amazing. I love their pretzels. They have this thing called Liptar, which is a really great cheese spread, kind of like Eastern European. My favorite thing about Cafe Kata is that you can come here and it's actual Austrian people coming to visit, and the wait staff do not rush you whatsoever. Like, once you're done with your meal, you basically have to like shake their necks to like get your check. Like, they just don't want you to leave. It's one of the few institutions, I would say, in this neighborhood adjacent to Times Square that still feels legit and like very wholesome and not passing. Like, it feels like it'll be here for much longer than any other pop-up shop. The ultimate privilege of white mediocrity is to look shitty. It costs that expensive to look this poor. There are videos on TikTok how to dress like you're going into the Lower East Side. In Times Square, there is a fetish of youth. There's a certain sense of like nostalgia for the 90s. This kind of like skinny white boys, Larry Clark. I describe it as kind of a little bit like a Disneyland. This interesting mix of Nolita girls financing guys. Adulting in New York is very much so contained within a sphere of capitalist existence. It's a shopping mall. It is an observation that I've made that it's almost impossible unless you're very steadfast about your beliefs. You can kind of get a little lost in the mix of things, and I don't think that really benefits character growth. I certainly think that New York builds character in a sense that it holds a sense of grit. I think in terms of character development, it makes people very wishy-washy in their personalities. It's like there's always something new, there's always a new store. Like if you walk down Orchard Street, if you walk If you walk into Soho and you haven't been there in 2 months, then my own belief is that I don't feel adulting has to do with being always mercurial. It's kind of like, you should be curious, but I think it's important to have a sense of like a North Star with New Yorkers, especially of us who rent. You know, of course, there's always that inkling of like this very tenuous anxiety that we know that it's impermanent. And I think that contributes to a restlessness. The appeal of Chinatown, the thing about rents in Chinatown, specifically in New York, is that a lot of these buildings are still owned by like ancestral Chinese families, and they don't really want to let them go or like, you know, to sell the building. So it is still like fairly affordable for young creatives. Not to generalize, but I do feel that a lot of the trope of like the white artsy hipster, they like that kind of thing because it is a departure from an otherwise very controlled sense of identity of Caucasian nature, or like behavior, I should say, really, actually. So yeah, I think the authenticity and the kind of the clutter of it is quite appealing. Instead of this like wasp, almost like no boundaries to it, that I feel is deemed as kind of cool. I mean, I think if we want to bounce back to like the whole fashion thing, Raf Simons took over like Calvin Klein as a creative director. His right-hand guy, Peter Millier, was like living in Times Square, Chinatown specifically, and you could see that reverberating in the collections because there were references to like fishmongers with like kind of like rubber sleeves up to here, kind of like protective clothing. And they even showed Raf Simons even showed a collection under the Chinatown Bridge in fashion and within kind of like pop Caucasian culture. There is a fetishization of like working class culture. It has become a little bit of like a 2-block runway.
Yeah. Times Square area, right?
But, you know, there's not that sense of integrity, you know, of like, okay, came here to buy some ramen that I grew up eating.
Yeah.
It's very like, oh, came here to wear my new Margiela heels, specifically with Times Square, is that it's dragging in people who live in Nolita, who live in the financing district, and it's not a judgment, because, you know, we're all welcome here, and New York is a city of, like, being in transit, but it does kind of, like, push away the smaller places, like Mings, or, like, little grocery stores that just sell, like, turnips.
Yeah.
Because they don't want turnips.
No.
Well, so I'll be leaving New York in a few weeks. I think it is foolish to believe that neighborhoods don't change in cosmopolitans like New York City. I think what is happening is an experiment in similar ways that Williamsburg was, what a capitalist utopia could look like, is just an outdoor shopping mall. And I think that is what it is going to become. And I'm not gonna hate on it because I'm here to shop. Listen, I love shopping, but like, I think the issue is that it's become a trope of itself, or a caricature, and it becomes very easy for people to buy into identities. And as much as people love Times Square, people also hate it. I personally never knew it as that. I just thought of it as kind of like Chinatown, and a place where there were cheap laundromats and affordable fresh groceries. Anecdotally, I can say within my own building, my old landlords were very, very generous and very kind with me. But since they've retired, they've handed it over to their their daughters. And I mean, these girls, they're like bleach blonde with like a little YSL shitty bag that I'm pretty sure is fake. And they're like, yeah, we're gonna bump up your rent by like a third. Because they know they can make money. I'm a little like Taoist about that way. I'm like both hopeful and like nihilistic about it.
Yeah.
I just think it's inevitable.
Yeah.
Cities specifically New York, are cities in transit. They're liminal spaces, you know? Unless you're able to afford like a $2 million apartment, even then, like it's not even certain that this place is for you forever.
Yeah.
This is a city that's always in flux, always changing. And I think that's the most important thing about living in New York City, whether it's for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. You know there's a sense of impermanence to it. And I think you just have to live in that space every day like it's a lesson to learn. And I would say going back to the point of like this whole forever young thing about New York City, I think that is something that New York does encourage. Everything is new all the time. Mm-hmm. So you're always kept, A, very good curious, but also B, restless. But yeah, no, I would say I feel neither way about it. I just think it's just the nature of cities like New York Carte blanche.